Dave Palumbo here with another Supplement and Science installment. Today I am joined by Chris Bell, the guy who made Bigger, Stronger, Faster. One of my favorite documentaries out there. Chris, welcome to the show.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dave. Thank you.
We're also joined by our good friend, Guru Ameen Alai. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dave.
And our other good friend, Jim Tamagini, is having some technical difficulties, but he will be joining us shortly. Now, Chris, the reason I have you on today with Guru Ameen is because you did a very interesting short documentary on Ibogaine. And Guru Ameen and I have talked about Ibogaine before on the show, how it can reset the brain for pain, for addiction, for emotional distress. And there's a whole laundry list of things that it can do for you. And Ameen has walked people through some of these, I call them ceremonies, you can call them treatments. He worked on Jim Tamagini had this addiction problem. He cured him of that. And I know that both of them somehow connected with you, and you're going to tell us that story to help you with your addiction. Give us a little background for people who don't know.
So this is really interesting. 6 years ago, I went to rehab for drugs and alcohol. I sort of got into that problem because I had a double hip replacement surgery right after I finished Bigger, Stronger, Faster. And I was at Sundance. I actually had fake hips at Sundance. They were just put in a couple months before. And, while I was at Sundance and every day thereafter, I was addicted to drugs and I was drinking every day because I was in so much pain. So the doctors so-called fixed my hips, but they didn't really fix anything. They just made things worse. They actually botched one of my hips, so it never was actually in place in the first place. So for 2 years, I was walking around in a ton of pain, hurting, fat, sick, nearly dead, and just trying to make my way in the world. But I was struggling because I was drinking every day and I was taking pills every day just to try to fill that hole and feel better. And then after I had my second revision hip surgery, a month after that, my older brother, Mad Dog, died in a sober living facility. And that just really destroyed me. And I was, I felt the guilt and shame of being high when he died and not really crying about it, not really worrying about it. And that stuff wears on you and it drags on you for a long time. And I got to a point where I moved up to Davis near Sacramento, working with my brother, trying to just get in better shape, fix my body, heal everything. I was on the Carnivore Diet, which is an all-meat diet, for 2 years just to try to keep arthritis at bay. And it worked amazing. It worked really, really well at keeping inflammation down, but it didn't kill all the pain because I still had these pain receptors that were switched on from a long time ago, back when I had my hip surgery. All these things were telling my body to feel pain. And it was weird. I was at the gym here in Sacramento. I was at my brother's gym, Super Training. And one day I was talking to Tony Huge, and he said, "Hey, I have a message from Ameen for you." And we had just talked before, just kind of in passing here and there about some of this stuff. And Ameen just sent me this video, and I don't even know why. I don't even know really what conversation this grew out of. But basically, I got this message from Ameen saying that Ibogaine could reset pain receptors and make you feel better. And I'm like, I've been in chronic pain for 30 years. People have pushed all sorts of stuff on me. People push CBD on me, which I think is the biggest scam in the history of medicine and supplements. I don't think it works. None of the studies will back me up on that. I've tried everything for pain, and the only thing I found that was to be effective was kratom. Kratom seemed to work. It seemed to hit the opioid receptors. It seemed to kill pain. And so I made a movie about that called A Leaf of Faith, and that's on Netflix. Shortly after that was when I started the Carnivore Diet, and between the Carnivore Diet and kratom, those things helped a lot to sort of heal me and sort of bring me back. But they didn't fix everything. And so when I got this message from Ameen, I was just really, really interested in how do I dive into Ibogaine? How do I try it? It seemed so foreign to me and it seemed so far away. But when Ameen said I could treat you, I was like, ding, ding, ding. Here I have a guy that can treat me. Let's try this.
Right. Let me stop you, Chris. Let me stop you for a second.
Sure.
Because I want to just step back for a second. So Chris has this. What year was the Bigger, Stronger, Faster? Did it come out? I don't even remember anymore.
2008.
All right. So 2008. I remember I went to the opening of Bigger, Stronger, Faster in the city.
Yeah.
And it was a huge hit. And here you are on top of the world, like probably, you know, this is your day to really shine, and you're in chronic pain, and you can't even enjoy it. And no one knew this, obviously. You did all the interviews, you did all the press circuits and everything like that for the thing. And here you are miserable, and no one knows this. So now you're going through this whole thing and trying to get off the drugs, and you're in pain chronically, and you're trying everything. And let's face it, kratom is good, but it's just another pain med, really. I mean, it's not solving the problem, right?
Yeah, it's a mild opioid that doesn't necessarily cause all the addiction problems that regular opioids do. So it's it's just a better version of that, but it's still something you have to take every day.
Right.
And it's still something you're on all the time.
Yeah, there's physical addiction, and then there's mental addiction. If you're in pain, then you're mentally addicted to the drugs. You got to take them. It doesn't matter if you have physical dependence or not on the drug. So
you can get a physical dependency to kratom, though.
You can.
I actually helped quite a few people that use kratom in conjunction with like Vicodin or something like that, and help them also.
Right. So now, let's go to you, Ameen, since you're talking. You and Chris are in contact. Why did you first reach out to Chris? Was it because Tony Huge told you that Chris was battling with the addiction and with the chronic pain?
Initially, before Tony went to Thailand, I was going to come help him. We were going to do Trevor. We were going to do Chris, and I think he had one other person that we were going to do we were planning on, the way Tony likes to do things. He wanted to document it and so forth. Chris was going to be the one that was going to bring the camera crew and so forth. Tony ended up going to Thailand, and so we ended up helping Chris, and it was such a nick of time, and I'm glad that Jim is with us, because it was right before this whole pandemic thing happened. And, Jim had a very, very difficult time being able to do this, but we decided it was important for us to get the message out there now, because we knew that things were going to get shut down, and that people weren't going to be able to go to Mexico or other places to be able to get help. And we're the first ones in America to be able to do this, to help other people.
So Jim, thank you for joining us. Of course, Jim Tamagini on the line. We've had you here before. You've battled with Greg Valentino online. You've talked to Guru Ameen online with us. So everyone knows who you are. We don't need to introduce you, but welcome back to the show. You fly down and to meet with Chris. Did you bring the kratom with you? Not kratom. Did you bring the Ibogaine with you? Is that how it worked?
Correct.
Okay. Tell us, give me what was going on. How did you hook up, and what made you decide to go and help, do this procedure?
Well, Amina told me about Chris and Tony, and we were looking down the barrel of whether things were going to get closed because of the pandemic. And I'm like, I talked to Chris, and I'm like, if we don't do this now, it'll never get done.
You're right.
Because
You're right.
It was a time where we had a lull in people to treat. And so I'm like, this is the time. It just hit me like, this is the time to do it.
Right.
And it's all about helping him, because this guy needs help. If I don't do it now, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it. I can't promise I could do it another time.
Right. So you take time out of your schedule and you fly down to Chris. And Chris, when you're driving to the airport to pick him up, and you see it in the documentary, we can show a little clip of that maybe if Tyler pulls that up. Are you thinking to yourself, what the freak am I getting into? Or are you thinking, you know what, if it doesn't work, at least I got a good, interesting documentary footage here. Is that how you're thinking about it?
No. Honestly, I was like, if it doesn't work, I don't have any movie. There's nothing to show, right? To do something and say, hey, I did this, and guess what? It just worked okay, or it didn't work. Like, it had to be a miracle, or that movie would have never got made.
Gotcha.
Also, I had writer's block for 6 years. I would have not been able to make that movie had I not done Ibogaine. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay. But what it did to me, as far as opening up my mind and just giving me so many creative ideas, like right now I'm on fire with ideas of just things that I want to do.
That's awesome.
And it feels great. It feels like I'm in a different world, And like, to tell you the truth, I didn't know Jim at all. I didn't know him from a hole in the wall. I never met him. I didn't even know what he looked like. He knew what I looked like only because he's seen Bigger, Stronger, Faster.
Right.
And he said, he went back and watched it again, and so he remembers what I looked like at the airport, And it's funny because, we didn't know each other, and I knew Ameen, but me and Ameen just only met online and through talking on the phone and things like that as well. So I didn't know either of these guys that well. Getting ready to do a Schedule I drug, and luckily, right before I did it, I was doing a lot of research, and when I researched it and I found out that I just started finding out, like, well, how many people actually died from this? And when I looked up all the deaths, every single one of the deaths involved people using other drugs immediately after using Ibogaine. And those were the 19 people over a course of like 20 years. And those are the people that passed away from it. I'm like, well, I'm not going to do that, so I'll probably be okay, right? But then even after I did it, when I was making the movie, I looked more into statistics on psychedelics and the deaths that they cause.
Yeah.
And what made me so angry is when I made Prescription Thugs, the numbers of opioid deaths just kept going up and up and up, all the way up to like 72,000 deaths a year. And nobody was doing anything about it. And here you have this natural plant, Ibogaine, that can like just get people right off these drugs in a matter of like a couple days. Now, it's not going to work for everyone, because there's going to be some people that are really creative about how they get their drugs and what they do, and they're just going to want to go right back on drugs. There's just those are people in AA that they call the unfortunates. I believe my brother was one of the unfortunates, one of the people that would, no matter what you gave him or what he did, he still might never get it. And that's just unfortunate. Exactly what they call them. There's some people that will never get it. But for the people that can be saved and can be helped, like me, and even some of the people that I think that we might think can't be saved, still might be saved by this. But for the people like me, I mean, it really is a miracle. It really just gave me everything in life. So I always felt that every day I was behind the 8 ball, because every day when I woke up, it took me an hour to like get out of bed and feel good and be out of pain. I had to take kratom every day. I had to take a shower before I went anywhere, because I just couldn't move. Like all my joints hurt, everything. So I felt like I was a prisoner. And then after doing this Ibogaine, I just feel so free of everything, including drugs and food cravings. And I was a tobacco chewer for 30 years. Wow. Like I chewed,
Yeah.
I quit it the very next day. And that's the one thing I was like, because that's the one thing immediately is like when you quit, when you have a habit that's like chew and you do it every day and you just don't do it anymore. Yeah. To me, that was like, that's really proof that this stuff
you could have
valuable.
You could have gotten mouth cancer from that stuff too. I mean, we know that causes that. So that's even a better reason to get off that. Now when you were going through the process.
Go
ahead, sorry.
Okay, again, guys. I don't want to cut you off.
I was just saying nicotine is a very strong drug to get off of, because it's more than just the nicotine. It's the habit of having something in your lip and then spitting it out, or the cigarette, or even the vape. All of those things also. But there's also nicotinamide receptors and all these other receptors that they bind to, which Ibogaine shuts down. So you no longer have the craving.
Right. Now, when you're going through this process, Chris, and we saw you take a couple pills and then you see how you react to it. And they showed this in the movie, and then you take a couple more pills, and obviously Ameen's got a regimen that you do of this stuff. What are you feeling? Because I mean, the only thing I could connect it to, in my experience, would be when I did ayahuasca, which Ameen says that is very similar to that. But give us the stages that you went through in the process and what you were feeling and experiencing, if it's something that's not too personal that you can share with us.
No, not at all. In the beginning, and Jim can attest to this because he was there the whole time, I kept saying, it's not kicking in, it's not working, it's not doing anything, I'm not feeling it. And I was telling Jim, because I even felt bad about it, that was my old addict self-talking. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was the old Chris Bell. That was a Chris Bell that wanted drugs, wanted to get fed drugs, and wanted to get high, and wanted to feel that feeling. And as soon as I got past that point and I started feeling something, I got really lightheaded. I got nauseous. And part of that reason is I decided when Jim was in the bathroom, and he wasn't looking, I threw in a chew, but it wasn't like he told me not to. I just didn't know. And I threw in a chew, and I think that made me get a little bit nauseous.
Hold on, Chris, let me stop you for 1 second. Were you high when you got there to do the thing? Were you still on pain meds?
No. I had been off of painkillers for years, and I even was even reduced my kratom down to nothing, and even got off of testosterone for like 3 months before we did this Ibogaine thing, because I wanted to make sure that my body was just pure and I didn't have anything in it before I did this.
So were you feeling terrible because you were off? Were you feeling really bad because you were off all these things?
No, not really. I don't have the same problem other people have when they go off of testosterone and they get all sad, and I don't even notice it. I don't know. I mean, I think my brother and I just power through all that stuff. We've always been like that, like where you get on and off stuff, and just like, well, either you can do it or you can't do it. And if
Right.
I can't do it, I'm not going to blame it on the drug. you
I
know?
meant the
So
kratom.
I don't know. I just never.
Yeah.
But
The
also,
kratom, though, you-
I've never taken massive doses either. So that's another thing I should say.
I
It's always
meant,
like 200
Chris, I meant the
milligrams a test, you know?
kratom. I meant the kratom. When you stopped the kratom, were you craving, anything, or were you in pain?
Oh no, I wasn't. No, not really.
Okay.
Before, you're saying before I did it?
When you arrived to do the Ibogaine treatment, how did you feel?
Yeah.
Because you say you were not on any drugs. Were you
Oh
freaking
no,
out?
yeah. So yeah, in that time, I just felt the same as I always felt. Just felt pain.
Okay.
I always felt stressed out. I always felt a lot of anxiety.
Gotcha.
And I think all these things all sort of roll together into the fact that, like, when you just don't feel good, you can't really pinpoint exactly what it is. But when you have depression, anxiety, PTSD, and actual physical chronic pain all working together, it's hard to really pinpoint where it's coming from. So yeah, I just felt like a different person. And then after I did this, I felt like me again. And I say, I feel like I was a little kid sitting on the couch with my brothers, and the whole world was pure. And I was just watching like WWF TV with my brothers, because that's to me when the world was pure,
Right.
when things were great, when things were awesome, And it just harkened back to that time for me, and putting myself in that mindset, in that space, just made me feel really good about myself. And when I came, so going into this, like, I felt depressed and sad and lonely,
Right.
and all these things. And then after coming out of it, I just felt so much love. I felt like, wow, my family really cares about me. Like, wow, these people really care about me. And even like Ameen and Jim, you could not find two more compassionate people on the planet. And I was like really surprised, because they came from the bodybuilding world. And I'm not used to dealing with people like this that are at the gym, that are compassionate and nice and sweet and care about your feelings and how you feel afterwards. I'm not used to that,
Right. Let me ask you a question, because I want to just equate it to my experiences. My dad was in chronic pain. He was on OxyContin, 80 milligrams twice a day. I bring him down to Florida. Okay, this is the last year and a half of his life. I bring him down to Florida because he was, getting demented, and I don't want to see anything happen. I got him in this really like high-end, like, assisted living place. He's like the mayor there. They're waiting on him hand and foot. It's like it's like being at the Ritz-Carlton, All of a sudden, they reduce his pain meds down to almost zero. He's got no. I'm always asking, Dad, are you in pain? No, I'm in no pain. He doesn't know they're not giving him the pain meds that he was getting before. He went from 160 milligrams of OxyContin down to, I think, maybe 10 milligrams. I don't even know if he was taking anything at the end. And he wasn't complaining of any pain. I believe a lot of pain is emotional pain that is manifested in the body. Do you agree with that? And is that what Ibogaine fixed in Chris? Emotional pain?
100%. Chris was suffering, and I want people to know that we had spoke for a long time before he actually did it. I got a lot of very in-depth conversation with him, understanding, not just, I take kratom or I've done testosterone, but we go pretty deep into the mentality. And I said that there's a lot of emotional trauma that you're holding on to, and this is what makes you feel pain, physical pain.
Right.
And so when you get rid of that emotional trauma and you allow yourself to be happy again, you no longer are in pain.
Right. I agree. I think I believe truly that that's really what happens. Now, we're going to get back to Chris in a second. I want to just equate this. When I see a guy like in the prime of his career, 30 years old, Luke Sandow, third place at the Arnold Classic, committing suicide. I mean, what a terrible, terrible thing, to happen, not only to him, obviously, because he's not here, but to his family and to the community it was so avoidable. Do you think that's something, and obviously we can't go back in time, so it doesn't matter, but would something like Ibogaine be something that probably could have helped him, do you think?
Do you remember, I don't know if you remember the very first video that we did where I told you about it?
Yeah.
There, I told you that I started helping, CEOs and stuff like that.
Sure.
Because of the one client of mine that all of a sudden he was suicidal and tried to OD on heroin, which he wasn't taking for a long time, but his friend overdosed, and so it just triggered something. So yes, absolutely. Let's not forget, Jim has suffered an enormous amount of emotional pain and trauma. I mean, to the likes of which I don't even know if it's comparable to, but it helped him in a tremendous way. So, he would be great to also talk about how effective it is for that type of
Jim?
emotional traumas.
Yeah,
I mean, I can tell you that I sat on the floor when my wife passed away. I had a year before that got ejected from a vehicle and had like life-threatening injuries. So I was out of work for 7 weeks, in the hospital rather, for 7 weeks, out of work for 7 months. My wife nursed me back to health, and then she died of a brain aneurysm. My family took the kids, so I was in an enormous house by myself for months. And at least a week, I sat on the floor with a Glock 9mm in my mouth.
Wow.
Never went away until after I did the Ibogaine. I haven't had a suicidal thought since. I've been in therapy for years for that, and I haven't been back.
Interesting.
And I don't know, I can't tell what it did, but I can tell you what I saw in Chris. Chris was a different person when I got off that plane and when I left him. Because it seemed like he had a new leash on life, his attitude. He didn't want to walk from the bedroom, to the bathroom. And then he wanted to go on endless walks where I was out of breath. And now he's walking 5 miles a day before breakfast. So you tell me if it doesn't do something. I mean, I've seen it, not just in me, but in all the people that I helped.
Yeah.
And you know what's the most incredible thing, Dave, is like it actually healed physical injuries that I had. So my knee was so bad that I could not walk around the block. I tweaked my knee doing a big heavy deadlift like a full year before. I did a 700-pound trap bar deadlift on my sobriety date just to see if I could do it, Yeah. And I tweaked my knee doing it, and I tweaked it really bad. I couldn't walk for several weeks. I had a partially torn ACL. And never got it fixed or did anything about it. I just kept trying to, work around it. And it wasn't healing very well at all. And my rotator cuff, I couldn't even lift my arm up over my head. My rotator cuff was about here, and I couldn't lift my arm. I even had that guy, Dr. Bo Hightower, in the video smashing on it with a hammer, and not even that fixed it.
Right.
But what Ibogaine did was relaxed every muscle in my body, and it allowed my body to just like relax and let go. And so all these things that were pulling my shoulder in different directions and all these things that were pulling my knee in different directions, they just completely relaxed. So I don't know if it fixed anything or actually healed anything or what it did. We'd have to do more research to figure out exactly what it did to my knee and to my shoulder. But these were two injuries that I definitely needed surgery for. And then I don't need surgery for them right now. And I feel like if I go back to some of these body workers like Hightower and these guys, that they can actually work on these things now because now the muscles are all loosened up. Mm-hmm. When you go get worked on and you're all tight and everything's stiff, the guys can't even get in there on the muscle, But if you loosen that up, I feel like I can even get even more healing than I already have.
Or another explanation would be that, we always have the healing capacity within us. The reason we don't heal is because we think we can't heal. And I think Ibogaine kind of opens you up to the possibilities of anything being possible. And it frees us of those, I guess, trained or brainwashed things that our parents tell us, that people tell us, the doctors tell you you're screwed. This is bad news. This is not going to heal. You need surgery. And you believe that. And when you believe that, it blocks your healing potential of these things.
Absolutely.
The other thing too, Dave, is I only believed in doctors and I only believed in drugs. That's the way I thought. That's the way I was brought up. Like you get sick, you go to the hospital, you go to the doctor, you get fixed. Big pharma was, in my ear, just like everybody else. Like every time you see a commercial, you think you got the problem that they're talking about. And that's just the way I grew up. And so I thought if something was not, some crazy drug that it couldn't work. And then when I found kratom, I started thinking differently because I'm like, well, this is just a plant. And although it's a banned plant, it's really effective. And when I found out Ibogaine was 100% natural, it comes from a tree bark. And they just sort of scrape off this little bit of a tree bark and that's what you're taking. I was like, oh my God, how could that be even dangerous? Right. And that's when I started looking into the stats on deaths from psychedelics and found out that you'd have a better chance of getting struck by lightning than dying from a psychedelic. And to me, like that just speaks volumes. It's like struck by lightning happens like 0.0001 of the population. So to me, that was an eye opener. It was like this this is a drug, but it is a natural drug, comes from a plant. And I think a lot of these plant drugs and a lot of these, I keep saying, like, we had this Just Say No campaign, and we should now have a Just Say Yes campaign, because all those drugs they told us not to take, they seem to be the ones that are healing people, and all the ones that the FDA approves and tells us to take, they seem to be the ones that are killing people. Yeah. So it's like we got this all backwards, just like we did with the food pyramid.
Yeah,
it's completely
absolutely.
Upside down and backwards.
100%. And that's one of the reasons I left medical school. A lot of people ask me, why'd you leave medical? Because I felt that I was becoming brainwashed into being just a pill pusher, and that I wasn't really addressing what was causing disease to begin with, which is really just dis-ease. It's not disease, it's dis-ease, and it's a mind thing. And so I wanted to work on helping people stay healthy, eating properly, supplementing with the right nutritional supplements to complement the body's ability so that it can heal itself, enhance the immune system. My mother died of cancer. Everyone on that side of the family died of cancer. And I'm like, I'm not going to get cancer. I refuse it. I'm not allowing it into my life, so I will not get cancer, because I will not allow the disease of cancer to come into my life. I won't eat the foods. I won't do things that I don't enjoy in life. I will make sure that I only do the things that I like, and I will give 100% to it, but I won't be putting myself in an emotional situation where I'm not happy. And that's very important. And sometimes people were constrained. I had a really good father. My father basically said, do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell you what to do. He said, because if I tell you what to do, you will resent me later in life. And I respect that, because I'm sure that when I left medical school, he wanted to tell me to fucking get my ass back in school, but he didn't, because he didn't want to do that. But a lot of people have very, very domineering parents, or no parents and no guidance. And so they don't have any direction. And so it's a lot harder for them to have a mature outlook on how they're going to handle themselves. And I think that Ibogaine really opens up your mind, and so does like ayahuasca. That's just another similar type of thing that people have done. And I don't know if it has the same healing properties, but you want to speak to that, Ameen?
Yeah. So ayahuasca, if you want to break it down into the journey, the way the journey is much more outward. Okay, if you understand that. And personally, I feel that if you really want to experience these things, you should start with Ibogaine, because you need to go inward before you go outward, or else you'll continue. Some people, not you, but some people continue to keep searching and searching and searching. Whereas with Ibogaine, there's no more searching. So if you were to do ayahuasca after Ibogaine, it would be much more spiritual, be much more healing. You would get a lot more out of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you ever think that this? I mean, we know Big Pharma will probably never endorse this type of a treatment, because it basically negates all their drugs that they're trying to sell us. Do you ever think this would be an established possible alternative treatment that would be approved,
So I want to leave this to Jim, because Jim is going to tell you about the wave that's coming over our country of decriminalization. And I think he's the one to take that.
But I'm going to let him talk in a second, because I did hear that in certain states now, psychedelics are actually legal, right, Jim?
Yeah, Jim.
Economic drugs is what they call it. Anything that grows out of the ground.
Okay.
To answer your question, yes, I think Big Pharma is going to catch on. The Ibogaine has already been patented several times in the 80s by SEPA Pharmacy, and they let the patent expire. Why? Because it grows in the ground, so how much can you charge for it? And it's a one-time application. How are they going to make any money on it?
Right.
Much be on Suboxone and methadone for the rest of your life and make billions of dollars, or keep them on OxyContin or whatever.
Yeah.
Right now, Colorado, Oakland, Santa Cruz already decriminalized. And Oakland even specifies it in the statute. So all ergonomic drugs that grow out of the ground are decriminalized. And there's legislation pending in Chicago and very close to passing in Vermont. And I think it's going to eventually take over the country, because these states are realizing that the only way doctors can do the research and scientists can do the research is to be able to feel free to have the drug to research on.
Well,
and
that was never. Do you think that they're really just doing that for that reason, which I don't believe, or is it because it's hard to criminalize something that grows in the ground? I mean, they should do it, but
Right. Well, they have for so long.
Yeah.
It's like marijuana. I think that some people want it to be want it decriminalized so it can be researched. But I think you're right. It's almost impossible to regulate something that grows in the ground.
I think, though, the reason why they may be decriminalizing some of these psychedelics is because our troops, the military people who have the post-traumatic stress disorders, are responding favorably, they say, to psychedelics, like ecstasy. They're using MDMA. And I'm sure probably Ibogaine would be a much even better alternative to MDMA, for people like that.
With depression. And as far as fatalities go, you can't overlook the fact that the Bawiki tribe, just like when you took ayahuasca, that's part of that indigenous culture's religion.
Right.
The Bawiki tribe in Gabon, Africa, has been using it for thousands of years.
Right.
You think if people were dropping dead left and right, they would part of their ceremony every week?
Yeah, right.
I have a friend from the tribe that I talk to on Facebook every week, and he thinks it's preposterous that anyone says people die from it.
Right.
He says only if you introduced another narcotic and it potentiated that narcotic would you have a adverse reaction.
I mean, what if people, there's so many people that love to abuse drugs out there. Is this a drug for everyone to try? In other words, if people watch this and say, you know what, I get depressed once in a while, you know what, I'm kind of lost in life. Is this something that everyone should try, or is this something that's solely really just kind of geared towards people who have serious problems?
There's levels to which which I would recommend different types of these substances. Okay, not everybody should use Ibogaine. Ibogaine is something that it's a life-changing experience. You have to be ready for it. It's a one and done. That's it. But for some people that aren't ready for that, psilocybin works great. But you have to know how to dose it, and it's not the same as just having fun with it. You have to actually use it therapeutically. Now, just like in bodybuilding with steroids, how you get a synergistic effect when you stack them, okay? You can get a synergistic effect when you stack psychedelics also. I don't want to get too much into detail about this, but I've been doing this for 6 years. And I perfected formulas that work in multiple different ways, some even that had to do with titrating people because they were on such a high dose of whatever it is that they were on. And these are not practical. This is not what other people do. They have in bodybuilding coaching terms, it's all cookie cutter everywhere else. This isn't cookie cutter.
Right.
What we do is tailored to each individual person, whether someone needs to do psilocybin with Ibogaine or not. There are some people that could get a benefit from it, and then of course both of those have to be weighed in. You have to adjust the dosage, and that's what I've become an expert at. Is how to administer for different reasons.
If someone's let's say someone's a heroin user right now, and they're currently doing heroin every single day, and they wanted to do Ibogaine, would they have to stop the heroin and then do the Ibogaine, or could they go right to doing one of these Ibogaine treatments with you?
So it all depends on how much heroin that they're on, first off, okay? But basically, what in order for us to start, they would have to skip the dose that they would normally take, maybe two or three, and be in just a little, withdrawal where you're sneezing and your eyes are running, and your nose is running.
Yeah.
And then when you take the very first test dose, all that goes away.
Oh, wow.
There's no more withdrawal symptoms. So it's within 30 minutes after you take the first test dose, it's all gone. And then after that, depending on your amount of toxicity that you're taking and you're consuming, your body weight, your yearly tolerance, there's so many different factors that are involved. But basically, the shaman or guru would be able to determine what would be the correct dose with you. We don't do specifically, we don't do like a test dose and a big flood dose. We gradually get the person there so that there's no fear or anxiety, and they can handle it.
Very good.
And I feel a lot of inquiry,
Also,
and that's one of the things that people ask, because they have the Wasserman method. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where you go to a hospital, pay outrageous amounts of money, and they sedate you and get you off of drugs. But they require you to be off all narcotics for 2 weeks before you get to be off for 2 weeks. And what the fuck are you doing that for?
Yeah, you're already detoxed.
yeah, how are you gonna? Yeah, how do you do that?
They got high the day before. they only need to skip one dose. They're happy because, you need them to, right? I mean, to be sweating a little bit.
Well, Jim,
the beginning stages of withdrawal, and then it works tremendously well. And they don't need to go through all that hell ahead of time.
Absolutely. The hardest drug to get off of, if we're going to talk about drugs, I don't want to pigeonhole this into drugs, but it's Suboxone. And we've gotten people off Suboxone, so it's not an issue. Like if you do it properly and you taper down to a reasonable dose, and then you skip your dose and wait 24 hours, you can be treated.
Now, there are some issues with alcohol and benzodiazepines, correct?
Yes.
Like that people do need to be off of those. They need to be medically detoxed first, from what I believe, what you told me.
Now, they're a small amount, depending on how bad their addiction is to benzodiazepines, because you don't want to stop someone from taking those. They could have a seizure, as you know, Dave, if they're heavily addicted to benzos. So there is a way to use, again, I'm not recommending this, but I learned quite a bit about how to apply this. And if you get them down to a reasonable level, they can actually do both at the same time, but you have to monitor these people very well.
Gotcha. Yeah. A lot of people, I had a few people tell me that benzos are like, and it doesn't seem that they would be, are the worst things to come off because you get like severely depressed, and a lot of people get suicidal sometimes when they stop those. Is that true?
Yes, it is. And then that's one, and also seizures too. So it's one of the reasons why we get people to taper down as low as they can, so that once they're done with the Ibogaine, they don't need it anymore. But you have to be very careful again. That the metabolites are low enough that it doesn't potentiate anything in their system during the time. Yeah. But as a matter of fact, let's just take a look at Jim here real quick and compare the way he looks now to the way he did when we first did the video, which is right when he left here. Okay. I mean, his muscles are responding in a way that they never have before. Jim, you want to talk about how you're responding to training?
Well, I know Chris is experiencing the same thing on a lesser scale, but you told me this would happen, and like everything that you tell me, I don't believe you at first, and then I become a true believer.
Just like me.
You told me that please do not take the same dose of performance-enhancing drugs that you used to take. Now, I saw a video with Dave the other day where he said, come to me in 20 years of extensive anabolic use and see if you have problems. Well, you're looking at a guy who has 30-plus years of extensive anabolic use. Right. And I never responded to the small doses that I did the way I did after Ibogaine. Yeah. And so when I was on the show before, I was way overweight. I wasn't on anything. And when I started to introduce PEs back into my system, very small amounts, to be specific, like 200 milligrams of test, 200 milligrams of Masteron, 300 milligrams of Primavol. Right. And that was very small for me. And I would get the same as over, say, 2 or 3 grams. Right.
Let me stop you, Jim, because I'm gonna put you down now. I'm gonna smack you in place. Isn't he trading one addiction for another now, essentially?
It's not the same. I'm going to be honest with you. That's why it initially was a performance enhancement drug from the very beginning. Remember, Dave, we talked about this, about how the African people were winning all the Olympic distance running because they were using Ibogaine. Yeah. And they were using it for ceremonial. So my personal feeling is that the drugs that people use that are actually addictive, okay, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, alcohol. These are the main drugs. Yeah. Coke, crack, everyone. Okay, if you can free yourself from that and you want to make yourself look better and that makes you happy, then there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're in control.
But don't people who have a very addictive personality get out of control and they start? You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? It's like kind of like a gateway type of thing.
I agree. But see, this is the really weird thing about Ibogaine, and it's very, very hard to understand until you've done it. But once you've done it, you no longer think like that. You no longer think like an addict would think. For example, if we put heroin in front of Jim right now, it wouldn't mean anything to him, even though that was his drug of choice when we met. Right. You see, so your brain no longer really craves that, and if he just wants to look better, it's just like bodybuilding before opiates, which there's nothing wrong with, right?
Right. Okay. Chris.
Well, also, it's harm reduction, right? He's going from one drug that's really, things that were really dangerous that he was doing before to things that like maybe aren't that dangerous now.
And the doses that he's taking are reasonable. They're not high.
They're just a lot smaller.
Let me ask you, Chris, a question. Now that you're clean, you feel good, you're creative, your juices are going, you're doing more documentaries. Would you use any performance-enhancing drugs, or do you feel a need to, or are you going to stay clean off of everything?
Yeah, so after I did my hip surgery, my testosterone levels were like 200. And you saw bigger, stronger, faster. I was the brother that didn't want to take steroids, And so, but after I did bigger, stronger, faster, had my 2 hip replacement surgeries, my testosterone was down in the dirt. For like the past 6-8 years, I've been on testosterone replacement therapy. And I only take testosterone, and I only take, I've never really taken more than 200 milligrams a week or anything like that. And I would, I'd go on and off of it and stuff like that. Mainly stay on it. But now that I've done Ibogaine and it's been over a month, I just took my first shot of testosterone like last week, and we'll see how that works. But yeah, I mean, to me, I love to train, I love to lift, and I love to lift heavy. And when I'm coming in here to do squats, I'm working with over 500 pounds.
Right.
And it's hard, and it takes a lot out of you. And I've just gotten into this mindset like my brother. If you're going to kick ass, then go kick ass.
Yeah, but Chris, at this point,
if you know that this is like, I did this whole video, this whole movie about steroids not being dangerous. Why would I now all of a sudden think they're dangerous and not want to do them?
Right, but at this stage of your life, you're in your late 40s now. You have a double hip replacement, okay? You feel good for the first time. And why would you feel a need to have to lift 500 pounds on the squat at this point? I mean, is it? I don't.
Why would you feel the need to collect poisonous, crazy snakes?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't deal with poisonous snakes.
Why do you have snakes in your house?
I don't deal with poisonous
snakes.
Like
snakes. It's something you like.
Start with who?
What? No, I mean, is it just something that you feel?
So I like to lift heavy, and I'm good at it, and it makes me feel good about myself, just like somebody else, going out and buying a new car or buying a new shirt or whatever. Like, it makes you feel good about yourself, then you're going to want to do it. So it's something that I've always been attracted to, was lifting heavy weights. I like doing it. So, I go back, we'll see if I go back to doing it, because we've been in a pandemic for a couple of weeks now.
Exactly. There's no gyms open.
I've just been walking. So, though, Dave, we grow and mature. You used to be a 300-pound bodybuilder, right? So then you got to a point where you got married, you have kids, and it's like you're in a different world. Sure. And I think I might be transformed. Like, I might be going into that different world right now at 47, but I'm not sure. So I'm just being open-minded to stuff. I'm not saying, hey, I have to go to the gym and squat tons of weight, or I got to go do this or do that. I'm just sort of taking things as they come.
Gotcha.
And the thing is that I've noticed the most about Ibogaine, what it did is it just calmed me down and brought me back to like being a normal dude and not being so aggro and aggressive about everything, and not always having to compete with everybody or compete with everything. So it just made me feel a lot better in a lot of different ways that I think will be conducive to living a longer, happier, healthy life.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds like the experiment was a definite success. Chris, I consider you a good friend, even if we don't talk all the time, and I'm very happy that you're in a good place emotionally now, and that you're back to doing what you're really passionate about, which is working out and doing your movies. And I'm looking forward to it. And if anyone hasn't seen it, where can they see the new Ibogaines movie? Because I think it's, is that on your YouTube channel?
Sure. It's just on YouTube. I literally just started a YouTube channel just to put this video up.
I saw it.
So it's up there. It's under Ibogaines, Ibogainz.
We'll flash it.
The actual drug is spelled with an E on the end, Ibogaine. And that's, so it's there, and it's also on my Instagram. If they just go to my Instagram on IGTV, it's like the last post I put up.
Great little short documentary if you guys want to check it out. Guru, Ameen, Jim, and Chris, thank you for joining me today. It was a great show. I'm so happy that we got this information out there. Ameen, if people want to get in contact you to do any of this Ibogaine or to get questions answered, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
The best way for them to get in touch with us is theredpillreset.com.
Okay. the redpillreset.com. I guess a takeoff of the Matrix movie where they say take the red pill or the blue pill. And very good website address. I like it. Guys, keep us updated on all the success stories you have, because I think the word needs to get out there. There's a lot of people who are suffering with emotional pain and physical pain, and if we can help just a couple of them, then we've done a very good deed here today. For now, though, I am Dave Palumbo. For Chris Bell, Guru Ameen Alai, and Jim Tamagini, we will see you next time.
Thank you, Dave.
See you, Dave.